Eric discovers his fiancée Isabella in an inappropriate relationship with her sister-in-law, Rebecca, on the beach. This is a significant act of betrayal and a pivotal moment in the story. Welcome to the Love and Betrayed Love channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. It is a story about retribution and the darkness that lurks within all of us. That's exactly what I need. Having a strategy is usually beneficial. Knowing your next action helps you stay on target. I'm sitting on a high bar stool in a hotel. I saw 3 alternatives for tonight. 1. Go outside, call a taxi and return to my sad lonely condo. This condominium was filled with memories and failed promises. It was apparent that a lady had adorned it. Isabella Martin created everything from the new furniture to the wall art which exuded high-class style. Thinking about that made me shiver. The second alternative was to return to the private hotel suites where the actual party was. I'd made it through the annual Ajax Corporation Christmas party banquet as the company's newest and youngest director. I had made a good impression by shaking the proper hands. The majority of the elderly bosses and their partners had left. It was only the younger people that stayed to party. Some Ajax clients were hosting an unofficial party in the business spaces upstairs stairs. The gatherings were wild. I was curious if Ajax management knew. They most likely did and made sure to cover themselves. I shake my head. After deciding not to participate in that insane scenario, I had only one other alternative: sit in the hotel bar with a glass of whiskey and reserve this bar stool for the night. I knew that if I drank too much, someone would take me to my room. We can't have guests lounging around. I giggled to myself shortly before deciding to stay. I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Swell, what are you doing down here?" "Man." I recognized him, based only on his voice. He is the only one who calls me Sven. My best buddy and co-worker is Michael Amir. I turned to stare into his dark brown, nearly black eyes. They reminded me of sharks, which was fitting given that he was a sales account manager. He jokingly joked about his eyelids rolling back as he completed a transaction with his olive skin, Middle Eastern appearance and natural handsomeness. I could almost believe him. He was popular with the female employees at the office. Dave is almost an inch taller than me, a fact he likes to remind me of. He had a slim frame, black wavy hair, was always clean-shaven and wore elegant European clothing. But I recognized the genuine Dave. He was someone who enjoyed chasing after women and having fun. "Sven, are you still with us?" He laughed, jolting me out of my thoughts. I suppose I should introduce myself. My name is Eric Danvers and I am the Director of Marketing for Ajax Corp. We create customized shipment boxes. If it doesn't fit into a conventional FedEx box, it may end up in one of ours. We serve a variety of markets, including electronics, booze and, yes, adult products. Oh, and why Sven? My father was Swedish and my mother is French, so I have the powerful body of a Viking and the curly hair and features of a Frenchman. It's a good mixture. I like Sven over Dave's moniker for me D'Artagnan due to my facial hair. "Damn, what are you doing down here?" he inquired, drawing up a seat next to me. I raised my glass of whiskey and gazed at him. "That's a ridiculous question." "Right," he grinned broadly. That was his norm. I've never encountered somebody that grins so much, even when being annoying. "Dude, you should move on." "I am working on it." I lied. He laughed. "Sitting here and being drunk will not get you anywhere. I'm considering my alternatives." I added, smiling, sadly. "Oh, you aren't going dark, are you?" "I should have sold you. My sister used a Prius." "You're in love with me, right?" I snorted and the whiskey went up my nose. It burned, bringing tears to my eyes as Dave chuckled. "Do you hope I coked?" "Nah," he replied with an unpleasant grin. "I keep telling you, guy, you are not my type." I answered. "You have an extra part." "I don't like jerk." "Nope, I'm very confident." "You have that part, even though you say a bunch of nonsense." Seriously, man, what are you doing down here? I'm figuring out my strategy. Oh please, Dave moaned, like when you cancelled your own party last week. Who would cancel their own 30th birthday party? I know you're sad, but you need to go on. I focused on the golden liquid in front of me. You are aware that the bridge has been torched, right? Isabella may want you back, but do you truly want to rebuild anything with her? I continued to stare at my beverage. We both knew the answer. When your love betrays, you can see their shortcomings easily. Yes, I had elevated Isabella to a pedestal. I believe everyone acts this way early in a relationship, even if we know it won't last. However, it is a brutal reality when our companion not only falls from the lofty pedestal we have placed them on, but then utilizes that same pedestal to truly hurt us, leaving us with nothing but broken hearts and bitter memories. Besides, Dave laughed, jolting me out of my thoughts. I'm very sure her family would be upset to see you two together again. And whose fault is it? My best pal smiled mischievously. I'm very positive. I won't receive a Christmas card from them either. Do you think I snorted? He remained silent for a minute before answering. His tone was calm yet serious. I've already apologized for that. Eric. I was only Dave. I interrupted. It's okay. I do not blame you for anything. I understand you were simply looking out for me. That's correct. He answered, grinning. That is what I am now doing as well. We need to head upstairs and have some fun. Missing your birthday celebration is one thing. Missing Bianca from accounting trying to dance is another. We both laughed. Bianca's dancing was always a spectacle and had become a holiday tradition. Ava may possibly be persuaded to perform a birthday dance for you in your dreams. I snorted, only in your wildest desires. Yes. Dave replied, smiling and evidently daydreaming. Why don't you simply ask her out? I laughed. You think about her all the time. Are you worried? She will say no. Hey, I'm in sales. I'm used to rejection. No, I am more frightened. You will say yes. I looked at him, puzzled. She might hurt me. He laughed in ways I couldn't imagine. She is more likely to execute a frightening ritual on you. Well, he grinned. There's that. We both laughed. Dave stood up and said, listen, man, do what you need to do, but if you do decide to attend the party upstairs, I guarantee it will be an unforgettable experience. Okay, I will think about it. Try to think about it before having another one. He remarked, pointing to my drink. We wouldn't want you to see double. He stared at me knowingly. It was evident that I had not understood his bizarre logic. Even the bravest guy would be terrified if he saw 4 Biancas. Listen, Eric, he said as he began to walk away. I will save you a space up there, and buddy, stop looking at my backside. His laughing followed him as he exited the bar. I found myself laughing with him. He could be obnoxious at times, but he was also a good buddy. I'm not sure how I'd have gotten through the last few months without his aid and jokes. The last few months have undoubtedly been the most difficult of my life. I met Isabella 3 years ago. I had been with my company for a year, and she had just passed the bar exam and was working at a small legal firm at 6 feet 2 inches. With a lovely face, long golden hair, and a slender athletic frame. She could readily stand out in any crowd. She had played volleyball in college before attending law school. When she first glanced at me with those sea green eyes, she smiled. I was hooked. Aside from her amazing looks, Isabella Martin could go into a room and take over. She's charming and strong, funny, determined and brilliant. Our time together was always enjoyable and thrilling. We dated for several years before I asked her to marry me. I would have asked her earlier, but her family terrified me. Whatever anyone tells you, when you marry someone, you inherit their family if they have any troubles with their family. If they are close-knit, you will experience the same challenges. They will be a part of your daily routine. Candace's family was extremely close to make things difficult. her family was full of lawyers. Candace's father, older brother and sister-in-law were all lawyers, and the Whitmores were well known and respected throughout South Florida. Candace's father, Gerald, struck me as arrogant, but this is probably because no father believes anyone is good enough for his daughter. He was also a high-profile defense attorney, so his demeanor seemed to come with the territory. Candace's mother, Evelyn, was a romantic. She was the only one who warmly accepted me into the family. She was also the only person who was not a lawyer. Evelyn was tall and attractive, much like Isabella, and appeared to be the glue that held the family together. Isabella, his older brother, Brad, was a nasty jerk. Gerald had a proud demeanor. Brad was simply being condescending. He was a business lawyer who was fortunate to work for his father's firm, because his colleagues would have had enough of him by now if he had worked elsewhere. Then there was Rebecca, Brad's wife. She was a real estate lawyer who blended right in with the rest of the family. Rebecca can be easily described. Consider a feisty and intelligent woman. Now make her only 5 foot tall. You also have Rebecca Martin. She could certainly handle herself inside the family, even with a family that appeared tailor-made for reality television. I cannot fathom my existence without Isabella, so I proposed, and when she accepted it, set off the most memorable summer of my life. We got engaged in May and moved into our condominium in July thanks to Rebecca's assistance. July was also when I received a promotion at work. I was on cloud nine, but I had no idea that by September everything would collapse. When I accepted the promotion, I expected to work hard hours at. Initially, what I didn't expect was the number of hours I could tell that bothered Isabella, but there wasn't much I could do. Things were already tight when everything came tumbling down. During Labor Day weekend, Isabella, his family was throwing a large party that Sunday. Gerald had something planned and the entire family needed to be present. However, on the Friday before the holiday, we encountered a major issue with a print ad at work. I had missed something vital and we wanted to rectify it by Saturday, so I had to go to the printer. Due to the holiday, we were unable to change our flights to Miami. Candace was infuriated. She stated she'd fly off on Friday with or without me. I apologized, but also reminded her of how frequently her employment had caused us to miss dates and outings due to late hours at the office. We had the worst fight ever. The night before she flew out the next day, I worked with the printer to find a solution. It appeared that my employment had been rescued and with any luck, I would still be able to attend the Martin party. I took a reedy trip to Orlando, which was the closest I could get. As the sun rises over Florida, I stood at baggage claim waiting for my suitcase to come. Fortunately, it arrived on the next aircraft 2 hours later. 2 hours after arrival, I was driving a rental car to Coconut Grove, about 3 hours north of Miami. The Whitmore lived in a gated enclave with their own private beach. Evelyn welcomed me with a big hug. Gerald shook my hand firmly, but Brad wasn't impressed. "It's about time you arrived." He said she's been angry at everyone. Evelyn verified Candace's terrible mood. They'd sent her to the beach with Rebecca to unwind. Evelyn instructed me to go get them for lunch. I chuckled and promised to go grab them. Perhaps my arrival will help. I knew I'd have to apologize a lot, but it was a special night for her family, so I'd do it. Despite the grassy sections, the modest beach was only a short walk away. It was lovely to have a secluded area by the water. The majority of the inhabitants in the community were elderly and rarely went to the beach, but there were dunes for further solitude. When I didn't see them with the other few people on the beach, I assumed they were behind a dune. I smiled as I approached a remote area and took out my cell phone. If Isabella and Rebecca were present, they might be sunbathing. I laughed to myself, imagining how they'd react if I startled them. As I approached, I heard voices. Actually, I overheard whispers and sigh. My heart raced. I hoped it wasn't Isabella, but images of her and Rebecca with other men flooded my thoughts. I didn't care much about Rebecca, but the prospect of Isabella doing that bothered me tremendously. I had to choose whether to face it or leave. I knew I had to see for myself. I took a deep breath and walked silently around the dune. If it was just one individual, I would confront him. If it was more, I'd get the proof and go. I came closer, recording with my phone what I witnessed altered everything. My fiancée was on all fours with Rebecca. They were not with other guys but with one another. Isabella was making Rebecca happy and she was plainly loving it. I stood there, shocked, my heart aching. Sweetheart. No one does it like you. The love of my life glanced into her sister-in-law's eyes and giggled like a small child. I was astounded that they didn't notice me, despite being completely immersed in their own world. I hoped they'd hear my sadness. I know I did. I managed to catch my breath again and took a hesitant step back. I'm not sure how I got back to the house, but I soon found myself face to face with my future mother-in-law. She appeared worried. "Eric, honey, what is wrong?" she inquired, jolting me out of my daze. "Where are the girls at the beach?" I gulped out, my emotions rising. "They'll be back shortly." Evelyn glanced into my eyes as they filled with tears. "I apologize," I whispered softly. "I need to leave. Make sure you return in time for the party." Gerald's voice emerged from behind me. I turned to look at him. His expression shifted from stern to bewildered and anxious. "Sir, I think that's a poor idea. You need family present tonight. Please tell Candace that I'll chat to her later. I am sad that I have to depart." I ran out of their house before they could ask any more questions. I'd been driving for an hour towards Orlando when my phone started vibrating. I couldn't obtain a flight back from Orlando, but I did get one from Tampa. I'd have to wait several hours, but it would get me home. After the third call, I decided to respond hello. I replied harshly, "Eric." Candace asked quietly, "Where are you headed back home?" Her voice shook slightly, "But why?" "Isabella. You know Dad needs everyone there tonight. We both understand that. After what I cannot be with your family, baby. I don't understand. I am not sure what you believed you saw or heard." However, Candace, stop. I snapped to her credit. She did not alter her argument. "Eric, we need to sit down and discuss what you believe you saw or heard." "Well, Candy, what I saw was my fiancée with her arms around her sister-in-law." "So love, have you cleaned up after that?" Yet I overheard a gasp. "Please," she asked gently, her voice breaking. "Please contact me before taking any action." Wow, I am sure I could have asked the same question, couldn't I please? "Isabella," I said mockingly. "I love you so much, baby, please talk to me before doing anything stupid." She had no response other than a sob. It looks like neither of us got what we wanted. I let out a growl. "Return to your family, Isabella. Try to figure out how to twist this, so you don't lose any more than you already have." "No, it's not what you expect," she cried. It was just I hung up before she could say anything more. As I drove, my phone was constantly buzzing till I turned it off. When I got to Tampa, I turned it back on and noticed 19 missed calls. Isabella had 11, Rebecca had 4, Evelyn had 1 and Gerald had 3. When I looked at my phone, it buzzed again. Without thinking, I responded. Eric barked in the irritated tone of his father. "Isabella." "Yes, sir," I responded quietly. "What happened?" "Isabella has been crying upstairs since high school." "What have you said to her?" "Mr. Martin, I'm sorry, but I told her the wedding is off." He shouted. "Why?" "I'm sorry, sir, but Isabella will need to tell you Gerald was quiet for a time before switching to lawyer mode. Now kid, don't do anything. We'll all regret. I'm confident we can work through this." "I doubt that, sir. Your daughter has already made a tremendous mistake." "Mr. Martin, I need to catch my flight, so I need to go." "Flight? What flight? I'm flying back home tonight." He yelled. "What happened?" "I'm sorry, sir, but you wouldn't believe me without proof." "Please tell Isabella. We'll handle things when she gets back." I hope tonight goes better for your family than this afternoon. Has goodbye, sir. While waiting for my flight, I listened to the audio messages. Isabella tried everything to get me to call back, questioning, demanding reasoning, and finally pleading and crying. When I got to our condo, I felt a strong need to get drunk. Thinking my judgment was off, I called Dave. He came over, picked me up and watched over me as I drank. I told him everything that had happened, probably 3 or 4 times in between the "I love you man" and "you're my best friend" moments. Yes, I'm a sentimental drunk. I also remember showing him the video several times. The next morning, or rather afternoon, I woke up and began planning my life without Isabella. There was just one major problem. I could not imagine life without her. That triggered a 3-month downward spiral of sadness. Visits and phone calls from the Martin family highlighted my difficult time. Isabella paid the first visit. She arrived home on Monday night to an empty condo as I had temporarily moved in with Dave. Her call when she discovered the place was empty indicated that she was extremely upset. I agreed to pay Candace a visit at her condominium the next night when I arrived. She had prepared a romantic dinner with wine and candles. She wore a stunning dress. She looked stunning, but my greeting ended her chances of winning me over. "Candace, you should not have done all of this." I said this as I walked in and saw everything she had prepared. "I wanted to show you how sorry I am." "I understand, Candace." I interrupted. "I mean, you shouldn't have, because it won't work. We're finished." "That isn't true, Eric, and you know it." "Yes, I was angry and made a major mistake, but I love you and you love me, so we'll figure out how to fix this." Still saying it was a one-time occurrence. She averted her gaze briefly. "You understand, that's not true, don't you?" I saw her turn white before she fought back. "Eric, I am not sure what you saw, but it was not what you thought." "Really?" I asked. "Do you want to see the video I took?" She froze, gasped and stumbled into a chair. "Oh no, Eric, please." "No, oh, it's brief but very informative." Candace sat shaking her head. "Please, Eric," she cried, avoiding eye contact. "Please." Tears welled up in my eyes as I watched the girl I once loved break down. "No," I replied softly. "We're finished. We were not even engaged for 4 months, and you are already cheating on me. It's beyond me that it was with another woman and your sister-in-law. Let's decide what to do about the condo. Your sister-in-law made this condo deal a success, but she also ended our relationship. The way things are set up, it's less expensive to live here than to rent a smaller place, because none of us has much money. One of us can easily buy the other out. I don't want us to end." She whispered. "I apologize, Eric, it was just a mistake." "No," I replied coldly. "A mistake is a one-time unanticipated occurrence. I don't think you planned it, but you responded quickly and I don't believe it was a one-time occurrence." Candace sat there crying and looked at the floor. "Please let me know what you decide regarding the condo," I remarked, turning to leave Eric. "Please do not do this to us," she said, brushing away her tears. "I love you." I returned her gaze, tears welling up in my eyes. I knew I had to leave. "Isabella." I doubt that I choked. "You did this to us. If that is your notion of love, I do not want it." I hastily fled, closing the door as she called my name. It felt weird to move into the future without her. I had always intended to grow old alongside her. Now I was alone. A few days later, I moved back into the unit. Since Isabella has departed, she sent a message indicating she was going home. Till we figured things out, I was unsure what her next move would be. I discovered out quickly enough. A few days later, I received an irate call. "What's with this foolishness about threatening to leak a video?" Gerald Martin yelled. "Mr. Martin, you will not dishonor my family's name. I'll have the cops on you before Mr. Martin." He stopped, so I took the opportunity to speak. "Mr. Martin," I replied calmly. "I never threatened to divulge anything. I do not wish to embarrass Candace, Rebecca, or your family, Rebecca. Why would this humiliate my daughter-in-law figures? I thought once a lawyer, always a lawyer." "Sir, what did Candace and Rebecca say?" "I saw they stated you overheard Isabella discussing a previous boyfriend. Candace stated that she had intercourse with him 6 months earlier, while you were dating. She claimed it would be embarrassing for everyone if this became public. They believe you overheard their conversation and became upset. Is that why you called off the wedding?" "No, sir," I sighed. "That is a beautiful story. However, it does not accurately describe what happened." I sighed again, unsure whether I wanted to say anything more, but Isabella had left me with no choice. "I apologize, Mr. Martin, but the person I saw on the beach that day was my ex-fiancée with your daughter-in-law." The telephone went quiet for a second. I assumed he had hung up. Then he spoke again. "That is a falsehood," he yelled. "That is untrue. If you tell anyone, I will sue you for slander. I will wreck your life." I hung up. I knew he wouldn't believe me without proof, so I hoped he would face Isabella or Mirth first. I suppose the best defense is a good offense. The Whitmores quickly fought back. A few days later, Ajax Core legal department called me in. They informed me that a slander action was underway against me. They implied that I had spoken with other staff, specifically Dave. I gave them a quick hazy account of what occurred. I explained that the separation was due to an embarrassing event and that it was done to protect the family. They agreed but still encouraged me to speak with a lawyer. My lawyer informed me that I was involved in 2 additional legal cases. First, there was an attempt to prohibit any images or films featuring the Martin family. They were also looking into AR Condo's financial setup. He inquired about the video and I delivered it to him. Then he inquired whether there were any copies. I said no. He stated that the case will not proceed to court since the footage would be made public to disprove lying, and the Whitmore didn't want that. My lawyer was very clear. Even if this didn't get to court, I may still face legal issues. He emphasized that they might drag this out for a long time, increasing my legal fees. It was probable that I would have to renegotiate the condominium's financing, which could be costly. They may also continue to call Ajax and be a nuisance, regardless of whether it was fair. They would attempt to destroy my relationship with my own company. I was shocked. I would win these wars, but I'd have to fight them all. It would require time and money. When Dave came over that night, I was depressed and angry. I attempted to do the right thing, but my relationship troubles persisted. Dave listened as I expressed my frustrations and unexpectedly he made no witty remarks. I felt awful for another week, till my lawyer called and informed me that everything had been dropped. I was both astonished and delighted. Dave and I went out to celebrate. With my legal issues resolved, I could return to work and begin to move on from Isabella. Honestly, everything she did in the last month made things simpler, but I still had feelings for her. A week later those feelings were put to the test again when I received the message. I was hesitant to respond. Evelyn was the Martin I least wanted to meet in person. Out of respect, I called her back and set up a meeting. She was traveling in and going on the same day, so I took the afternoon off and picked her up from the airport. We decided to have a quick lunch and then return to my unit to speak once at the unit. The conversation shifted from light to serious. She cleared her throat after we'd sipped our wine and relaxed. "Thank you, Eric," she murmured quietly and with a sad grin. "Thank you for taking part in this day trip, nice. I have always enjoyed spending time with you, Evelyn." "I apologize. We probably won't do as much in the future." She sighed regretfully. "I believe you are correct. Should we proceed to the uncomfortable part of my visit?" I nodded. I felt a twinge of regret as I looked at her. She was really gorgeous, and I imagined what Isabella might look like in 25 years. She would probably still be attractive. I just wanted to let you know that we have discontinued all legal actions against you. I can't speak for the family, Eric, but I'm sorry we put you through this. Thank you, Evelyn. This means a lot. I'm sorry the rest of the family doesn't feel the same way. After you left that day, Candace and Rebecca returned from the beach and everything fell apart. When they discovered you had gone to the beach and returned distressed enough to leave, they were really concerned. Your call with Isabella elicited an emotional response. Isabella grew quite unhappy and Rebecca was outraged. Gerald had not told anyone, but he intended to announce his political candidacy that night. The turmoil and chaos forced him to postpone his announcement. I apologized that things did not go as he had intended. I truly understand how he feels. Yes, she replied softly. I am sure you do. I'm not sure why I was attacked then. I did not cause this, Evelyn. I'm ashamed to admit that it was because of Gerald and Candace's connection. Gerald has always been quite protective of her. When she told her father about the video, he went insane. He interpreted it as a personal attack on her and the family. It felt as if you were threatening to hurt us on purpose. Then, following his call to you, everything changed. Gerald returned to his cool professional demeanor. I've seen that several times before then. After that meeting 2 weekends ago, she glanced at me as if expecting a reaction. Unfortunately, all she saw was my bewilderment, as it was how I felt. Are you unaware of the meeting? No, I replied, shaking my head. What meeting? She looked at me for a moment. Eric, do you still have the video? No, I left a copy with my lawyer and then deleted the original, and you didn't make any other copies? No, absolutely not. So you didn't send someone to meet with Gerald and the others? Approximately a week and a half ago, she inquired, fighting back a smile. No, I exclaimed. I never directed my lawyer to meet with your family. I am very sure that was not your lawyer. I believe his last name was Nash or something similar, Nassar. Yes, I believe that's correct. Isabella said nothing, but she seemed to recognize him. Have you sent him? No, I moaned, worried. He is my best friend. Evelyn attempted not to chuckle. I told them you hadn't sent him, but nobody believed me. No one except Brad. Well, thank you, Brad. I'm kind of surprised, do not be. She said, clearly upset. He claimed he didn't think you were very smart. I apologize. I grinned anyway. Your friend made a strong impression. However, Gerald stated that he would become an excellent lawyer. He labeled him an ambulance chaser. I laughed at the thought. He showed them a copy of your video. It shook them. Instead of blaming you, my family began to look within themselves. It's been quite strained at home since then. I apologize, Evelyn. When I showed him the duplicate, I should have expected him to keep it, but I promise I did not give him one. It's okay, Eric, I never watched the video. I just heard about it. I watched her steady herself. Is this true? She asked quietly. Did you actually catch Isabella and Rebecca together? I'm afraid so. I said gently, that is exactly what is shown in the video. I nodded. She dropped her head, attempting not to cry. I instinctively stood up and sat next her, wrapping my arm over her. She leaned against me, her face and hands rested on my chest, seeking consolation. For a moment, I felt like I was holding Isabella again, soothing the lady I adored. I softly caressed her back and whispered that everything will be fine. I gently ran my fingernails over her shoulder blades and down her spine till I heard a stifled laugh. I leaned back and watched Evelyn's eyes well up with tears, but also a knowing smile. I questioned where she got that from. She chuckled. You must provide excellent back rubs, I flushed. I apologize. I wasn't thinking I used to do this when Isabella couldn't sleep. There's no need to apologize. She's been asking me to do it for her almost every night since your departure. I looked down and tried to gather my thoughts. She's genuinely upset about what she had done to you. She thinks you're a lovely guy who would have been an excellent spouse and father, but I'm not sure she understands how unique you are. If she ever does, it might seriously harm her. Eric, I'm so sorry for how my daughter treated you. I apologize for how my entire family treated you. Did you know Isabella wants to return to Florida for good? I shake my head. She intends to sign over this condominium to you. She's invested relatively little money in it. You would need to take over the payments, all right. I spoke carefully. Evelyn noticed my skepticism. She's trying, Eric. She's attempting to express her regret for ruining things, but not enough to admit what she done. Right now. I realize how annoying it is, but Eric, there are other things to think about. The video suggests that additional things occurred, but there was reasonable doubt. I began to respond, but she cut me short. Eric, as I previously stated. I have never seen the video, but I know that reasonable doubt is the only thing preventing Brad from divorcing Rebecca. If either confessed to more than one mistake, it could jeopardize her brother's marriage. Isabella must also decide whether her confession will be of any use. What are you saying? The truth does not matter. She shakes her head. No, but allow me to ask you honestly, would you accept her back if she admitted what you think she did and sincerely apologized? I please respond honestly. Eric, I knew the answer. I thought about it briefly on the flight back from Florida. No, I confess, I do not think I could. She smiled sadly and nodded. Unfortunately, Candace is aware of this as well, but refuses to confess it. She loves you and recognizes that she has made mistakes, but she has yet to understand that what she wants is no longer important. Since you have gone on, I'm sure she's still thinking of ways to talk to you and get you back. My daughter is a determined person. I knew she was correct. I just hadn't realized Isabella could be that stubborn. After dropping Evelyn off at the airport, I called Dave. My greeting was loud. You're a jerk. I shouted, yeah, I am an. He remarked, attempting to call me. So why am I in this time, you idiot? I never told you to blackmail my ex-fiancée or her family. Wow, whoa, I did not blackmail anyone. Are you telling me you didn't visit Florida and meet with the Whitmore? I did this, but I did not blackmail them. I was stunned, but I remained silent. Dave took advantage of the silence. Look dude, he laughed slightly. All I did was show them the movie and explain that I was looking for other copies that I knew were available. I told them I knew of at least 2, and there could be more. It wouldn't be a secret forever, but I figured I could give them at least a year, enough time to plan and manage the damage. And what did you expect in return? Dave? I asked, attempting to collect my thoughts. It's interesting that the father also asked that question. I told them I was doing it for free as a service to you, but I'd like it if those foolish lawsuits went away, and presto, see what occurred. I could detect happiness in his voice over the phone. He was so happy with himself that it was difficult for me to remain upset. Man. I did not tell you to do that, you never would have. Dude, you've always been so obsessed with Candace's mother. Let's be honest. If she had been 20 years younger and unattached, you would have fell for her rather than Isabella. Candace has always reminded me of her. I wish Isabella was more like her mother than her father. We remained silent for a time. How about the video? I asked, which one did you steal from my cell? Yeah, about that. Dave sighed. Look, Sven, I apologize, but those 2 looked incredible and it was so intense. How many copies are there? Only the one your lawyer possesses and my personal copy. I tell you to remove it, but you'll just lie and pretend you already did. Yeah, you're probably correct. He laughed. Consider it payback for my airfare and time, dude. It will remain in my private collection, unless of course we want it leaked later on. No, I said calmly, just make sure it never goes public. And Dave, yeah, guy, thanks. I believed my bad days were ended when I went home for Thanksgiving. I was mistaken when I landed at my mom and dad's farm, and in Indiana I suspected something was off. I'd looked forward to spending the holidays with my 3 elder brothers and their families, but I noted the tension with my parents on Thanksgiving Day. Isabella showed up for supper. She was invited, of course, by my mother. They said it was an early Christmas present for me. I asked them about the return policy for this gift. It was partly my fault. I hadn't told my parents all the details of my breakup. I only said that Isabella cheated on me and the wedding was off. I foolishly told them that we had not spoken since that night. She returned following Labor Day. I also made the mistake of telling my mother that even though we were no longer together, I still loved her. I knew they were trying to do what was best for me, but I had made it very clear. I never wanted to see or talk to my ex-fiancée again. Her presence felt like a betrayal from my parents. That was on my mind. When Isabella arrived, my parents greeted her first, followed by a hello to me. Her eyes begged me to greet her. I turned away and continued speaking with one of my brothers. A few minutes later, my parents cornered me. That was rude. My mother began. We did not raise you like that, son. My father added, this is our home. Yes, I interrupted, and if you want me to leave, please let me know. Neither said anything, so I walked away. Thanksgiving dinner felt awkward. I acted as if Isabella did not exist. I dismissed her attempt to communicate with me. I believe my parents now understand how tense the situation was, but my oldest brother did not. He decided to call me out in the middle of the meal because I had ignored Isabella for the 10th time. That is simply rude. He stated yes, it felt familiar. I should have just smiled and remained silent, but I was upset that my Thanksgiving with my family had been wrecked. No, I scoffed. What's impolite is inviting my ex-fiancée to a family function without notice. Be fair. We should invite several ex-girlfriends and possibly an ex-wife on our next family vacation. I observed my oldest brother close his eyes and lower his head while his wife appeared to be about to beat someone. My other brothers became pale and stared at their dishes too. Candace stood up, excused herself and entered the kitchen. My parents glared at me and I glared back. I considered leaving, but it was my family. I excused myself and followed Isabella to the kitchen. When I arrived, she was wiping her eyes, definitely weeping. Surprisingly, I did not feel as horrible as I expected. What are you doing here, Isabella? Your parents invited me. You should not have accepted. It's better here than with my family. Even with your frigid reception, it's still preferable to the mood at the Martin house this Christmas, and whose fault is it? I scoffed. Oh, trust me, she said. Regretfully, both Rebecca and I are suffering with the aftermath of that day, still admitting only what can be confirmed, and you wonder why I don't believe you. I apologize, Eric, I understand it appears that way. However, with everything going on in my family right now, I apologize. I'm not sure what to say. So, counselor, how many times would you suppose my ex-fiancée cheated on me? Only one time, and that is not a guess. You have to believe it. You have got to be kidding. I don't believe anything. You say she dropped her head attempting not to cry. I can understand that she said quietly, but it is true, and it is true that I love you. I scoffed. I know I would have trouble believing that if the roles were reversed. How many times, Isabella? I asked plainly, assuming 4 or 3 times before you and I became exclusive. Was she the only one? No, there were a few in college and one in law school, not to mention the men I dated. I didn't realize you were into both. You should have told me. I did not want to scare you away. I knew I'd discovered the right person to spend my life with, but I was afraid you would not take it well. To be honest, I wouldn't have been disturbed as much as I was in the past, like your former boyfriends, but you helped your sister-in-law cheat on your brother. Yeah, it would not have gone well with me. She remained there quietly staring at me, even though her eyes were red from tears. She was still gorgeous. I battled the temptation to approach her and hold her. I mean, come on, Candace, he's your brother. I understand he's difficult, but he doesn't deserve it. Yes, I understand, she cried. I can't believe he's utilizing reasonable doubt to maintain his marriage. Brad doesn't seem to be the forgiving type right now. Their marriage is barely holding together. I doubt it will survive. And why is that? Are you and Rebecca moving in together? She winced and more tears flowed. No, I only saw Rebecca a couple times. It was simply a bodily thing. Even if Brad and Rebecca divorce, Rebecca and I will never get together. She stopped to allow me to answer, but I remained silent. No, she continued. I believe that if my brother is not currently having an affair, he will shortly. When they find out, they'll either break up or marry openly. Honestly, I'm not sure which way it will go. I suppose it will work out somehow, not likely. Isabella snorted. I know Dad is trying everything he can to keep everyone from fighting. I never had a good relationship with my brother. What we have right now is toxic. I am sure he would want to hurt me in any way he could. Right now, could you blame him? No, she replied softly. I betrayed both him and you. Brad is not a saint, but that does not justify what I did to him. I'm attempting to reconcile with him, but I doubt it will ever happen. We sat there staring at one another. There was so much left to say, but neither of us knew where to begin. I'm also attempting to win back the man I love, she said, attempting to relieve the strain. This is never going to happen. I replied plainly it could if he gave me the opportunity. Really? I scoffed. Tell me, how would you start to rebuild trust? You lied to me from the beginning, then you had cheated on me. Previously. We had been engaged for months. You cheated on your brother, so evidently family does not matter much to you. How do you restore trust if there is nothing to build on? I found myself becoming more vocal as my rage and hurt erupted. Given time, I am confident that I can gain your trust. She pleaded, and why would I give you this time? What is in it for me? Years of suspecting that my fiancé is cheating on me every time I turn around. Let's face it, I don't trust you anymore, Isabella. I can't trust you alone with any man or woman anymore. Worse, I can't even trust you with your own family. What's to stop you from being intrigued about a cousin, uncle or aunt? And why did you cheat on me again? Oh, that's correct. I was yelling now because little Isabella did not get her way. So what happens if you don't get your way next time? Do you just go to sleep with the mailman? Isabella, are you 13 years old? Candace was silently crying as my parents walked in. Eric. That is enough. My father let out a bark. No, it isn't. Why is she here? Dad, Mom, what did she say to you that prompted you to break my trust and bring her here to destroy our family vacation? My mother winced at my comments and my father stared at me. She said, my mother stammered. She stated that she needed a chance to apologize to you and tell you how much she loved you. Oh, Eric, we can see how much you're hurting and still care about her. We were no, I interrupted. It's all about what she wants. She wishes to apologize. She intends to ambush me in front of my own family. She seeks forgiveness. She wants us to get back together, never mind what I want. At nearly 30 years old, I can make my own judgments, and I made the decision to remain away from her and maintain no contact, but my parents disagreed. Of course my ex-fiancée used them to obtain what she wanted again, but let's get real. She is skilled at manipulating things to get her way. The true reason I called off the engagement. No, Eric, please, Candace begged. I called off the engagement. When I saw my fiancée with her sister-in-law, my mother gasped and I noticed my father's face turn pale. So Mom and Dad. You invited a deceitful individual to Thanksgiving dinner, so she might trick your son into giving her another chance to break his heart. Thanks so much. Candace ran out of the kitchen crying. She grabbed her pocketbook and coat and slammed the door behind her. My parents followed me as I began gathering my belongings. My brothers and their families were still seated at the table, quietly watching us. Eric. My mother's trembling voice shouted out. I suppose it's time for me to depart as well. This has been fantastic. Let's do it again very soon. We're sorry, son. My father spoke gently. Me too. I said, will we see you for Christmas? My mother asked, tears in her eyes. No, I'm sure I'll be busy at work. Besides, it is too soon. I need some time. I will call later. My Thanksgiving came to a close on a grateful note. So what will it be, Svan? The voice came from behind the bar. I gave the bartender a smile. She looked like she was in her 40s. She was pretty, but she had previously been stunning. She seemed tired with everything, like a dancer in Vegas who has been performing for far too long. I looked at her name tag. So Betty, what is on the menu? I was joking. She offered a smile. That must have been a heartbreaker. Once it's Becca. Actually, she laughed. I grinned as I looked closer at the name tag. Sorry, I tried not to stare at your chest. She laughed aloud. Sure, you've been eyeing me for a while now. I simply grinned, feeling caught. Relax. She said it comes with the job, so do the cheesy pickup lines. So no deal? I asked, pretending to seem naive. That's a poor concept. She laughed. My girlfriend would not like it. Candace and Rebecca brought up strong memories for me. Becca noticed immediately, away. It's not communicable. She explained, her voice frigid. It is not that, I responded. Sadly, I recently lost my fiancée to another woman. Her voice softened. I apologize, sometimes it takes time to figure out who we are, I guess. So I nodded. I caught them together. That's bad. She cheated. I nodded. She stared at me with pity. Cheating is bad, no matter who does it. So tell me what you actually think. Becca, I chuckled, since you asked. She grinned. By the way, I added, offering my hand. Eric. She shook it, holding on for a second. Rebecca, she said, smiling, and you may let go now, but it was my one excuse to touch a lovely woman without getting in trouble. Oh my God, you're so full of it. She laughed and went back to work. Are you in sales or something, marketing? Same stuff. Becca saw an empty glass and served the customer. She returned a few minutes later. Eric, relax, you will get through this. I am sorry about your fiancé. I went through something similar several years ago. It was tough. You seem fine now. It was difficult, but I moved on. She smiled at me. You're a good-look guy with a sense of humor and a decent job. You will be fine, but not cute enough to bring home. She gave a loud laugh. I am more likely to take your friend home. Thank you, Rebecca. My ego needed it. I responded sarcastically. She chuckled. He is safe. You are not. I leaned in closer. Curious. Okay, you've got my attention now. She looked at her other customers before returning her attention to me. Is Dave your friend? I nodded. He's simply looking for a good time. No strings attached. I chuckled, knowing she was correct. My girlfriend and I could have fun with him, but he'd be gone by morning. There are no complications. That is safe. Now it's your turn. She replied, shaking her head. You're different. A girl might fall for you, may not intend to, but there could be strings attached. This is what makes you dangerous. I feel rejected. I sighed, smiling gently, but still. Becca laughed. Do not worry. There is a woman out there for you, just do not rush. Go live a little. I suspected there was more to her story, but I didn't press bartender wisdom. I asked, of course, and remember, to leave a nice tip when you leave. She laughed and went to help another customer. Yes, I thought time to move on, but where should I sign my tab to my room, and left a nice tip for Becca. I smiled as I left the hotel bar. I heard the celebration before I exited the elevator. People were wandering about in front of the suites, which had been transformed into party areas. When I walked in, the music hit me like a tsunami. I attempted to lose myself in the crowd. It worked for a while until I heard Dave's voice. There he is. He shouted, "Happy birthday, boy." I groaned. I intend to get back at Dave later. I spent the next 15 minutes shaking hands and being patted on the back. I also received several birthday kisses, which made me less irritated with Dave. Just when I thought I was finished, the music stopped. Sven. Dave called out again. Hello, come over here. Dave called out. I strolled over to my best friend Dave, as if I were going to meet my doomed companion. Get over here. His words were slightly slurred. I could tell he'd been drinking before I arrived. Sit down. We've prepared some birthday treats for you. All I could think of was how severe Dave's punishment would be for this. As I sat, I heard giggling behind me. Bianca Thompson suddenly jumped in front of me. She stood 5'3" and weighed 230 pounds, with a round smiling face and beautiful red locks. Bianca was difficult to miss, especially with her big 40E breasts that bounced with every motion she made. Just as I was going to stop her, she raised her top. Surprise. She shouted and pressed her chest on my face. Wow, I spoke loudly, attempting to maintain some respect. What a pleasant surprise. Make it 2 pleasant surprises. The audience laughed and cheered. Bianca also giggled and kissed me before walking away and covering herself up again. I gave Dave a nasty glance. He shuddered but maintained his composure, smirking. He gestured to someone and the music changed to a languid smoky melody. I stopped breathing as I saw Ava Ward enter the center. Ava worked with Dave in sales and was incredibly attractive. She was almost as tall as me. Her long straight black hair like a robe draped around her body. Her face was oval and beautiful, with dark red lipstick and darker makeup around her eyes. She had strong, penetrating brown eyes. Ava began to dance, moving like a panther. Her black blouse and pinstriped skirt clung to her slim figure. She had a tattoo on her right arm of a black tree with symbols underneath and a man's face in the branches. It was claimed to be her first love, whom she slaughtered beneath an oak tree, but that was only a rumor. What was certain was that she was not someone to mess with. Dave frequently stated that her aggressive manner terrified people into buying more than they intended. She danced with grace. Her stare fixed on me as if she were playing with me. Before hitting, she slowly unzipped her skirt and allowed it to fall to the floor. She smiled wickedly as my gaze moved down her beautiful legs to her black high heels. A little black thong hung from the top of her legs, barely covering her. With a rapid kick, she tossed her skirt to Dave, who groaned. As he caught it, she turned around revealing her petite taut backside. Still looking at me. She unbuttoned her blouse and flung it to Dave, revealing her huge breasts through her black bra. The black patches are visible through the lace. She swayed to the music and I felt as if I had fallen under her spell. Just then another person joined the circle. Lily Parker, a customer support account manager, and Ava's friend walked in around the office. They went by the aliases Parker and Ward. Lily appeared to gleam. In contrast to Ava's dark complexion, Ava felt in danger. Lily seemed to be full of warmth and humor. Even their voices differed. Ava's voice is deep and husky, whereas Deb's is bright and high-pitched. I grinned to myself, remembering the guys who mistook Deb's diminutive stature and beautiful voice for innocence. She looked like an angel, but she acted crazy like a spring breaker. Lily hurriedly stripped to match Ava's clothing. The audience adored it. She was now dancing in just a lacy pink bra and a grey and pink thong. I watched her dance, her breasts bouncing to the music. She was a little taller than 5 feet, making her bust even more prominent, but it was her thong that truly piqued my interest. The bright pink cloth barely covered anything, exposing that she was clean-shaven underneath. Then she turned and I choked. The strings began at her waist and continued down till they vanished between her plump cheeks. I had to push myself to sit still and stop trying to find out where that tiny piece of fabric went watching them dance. It was difficult not to notice how different they were from Ava. A guy was looking for a night of dangerous activities, but Lily was more interested in having fun and messing around. It was like choose between night and day, so who has my attention? That was easy, although I didn't show it immediately away, because I was receiving attention from both of these wonderful females. Ava moved to the music as if under a spell, while Lily swirled and danced, enjoying the spotlight. Ava would often give her a sharp glance and lick her lips teasingly, and Lily would respond with a huge playful kiss. When Ava looked away, Lily dashed over and unhooked her bra. Ava grabbed it before it fell, nearly showing her chest. Lily laughed and danced away as the audience grumbled. Ava, disappointed with her rapid save, halted and let her black satin bra fall to the floor. The audience applauded wildly. The two danced around each other as if they were in a combat with fast movements. Ava was in front of Lily. To everyone's amazement, she crouched low before moving up against Deb's body. She paused when her chest was almost touching Deb's. She slowly removed Deb's bra and slid it aside, allowing her chest to rest on its own. Ava stood up in a slow dance move. "You are," assuring Lily's chest brushed against her own. She hesitated briefly and pressed their chests together. It was a moment I knew would stick with me and probably everyone else for a long time. With a triumphant laugh, Ava waved Lily's bra in the air. She danced around, displaying her pride to the audience's delight. Lily looked at me with a twinkle in her eyes. She smiled, mischievously, lifted her chest and pressed them together. She moved over to me and blocked my view of Ava. She slowly lifted her left breast to her lips, running her tongue along the top. Her skin renayed and she started breathing more heavily. Her nipples stiffened and became into rocks. I was captivated until I heard a cheer from the audience and Lily moved aside to see what was going on behind her. Ava was bending over and carefully pulling her tiny thong down her legs, displaying herself. She stepped out and threw it at me, but Lily caught it. Ava gave Lily a chilly look, then smiled wickedly. She placed 2 fingers into her mouth and carefully stroked them down her body, groaning as they reached her lower lips. She shoved them inside the audience, groaned with her. Lily instantly moved in front of me, obscuring my vision. "Okay now." Our Vice President of Engineering, Harold Bingham, boomed his aged voice. "All right. Everyone, the show has ended." His loud voice astonished everyone, including Ava. It also caused Lily to step back onto my lap. I instinctively reached up to steady. I felt the warmth of her backside brush against me. I hoped she didn't notice my enthusiasm, building any possibility of her not noticing evaporated as she laughed and squeezed harder. Mr. Bingham went on to say, "I know these parties can get wild, but live shows are too much for even our hosts." The audience groaned in disappointment. "How about dead shows?" Someone yelled in the back, making everyone laugh. Mr. Bingham responded calmly. "I'm sure your wife has complained about it several times, but the show is over for tonight." The audience laughed and cheered. "Now I'd like to thank Miss Parker and Miss Ward for the show, but first you both need to put your clothes back on." That is assuming Mr. Danvers can remove his hands from Miss Parker's chest. The room erupted with hoots and jeers. I quickly realized that when Lily fell into my lap, I had grabbed her chest. "Those are soft, warm, incredible." "Oh no," I quickly let go. Lily got up, laughed and went to get her clothes. When I stood up, I was horrified to discover a damp spot on my pants. At first I thought it was myself, but then I realized it was Lily. She must have been quite excited to make her imprint on me, I had to admit that I liked the concept of a lovely blonde becoming excited, dancing and then sitting in my lap leaving a mark. My ego felt fairly fantastic. I spent the next few minutes avoiding people hoping they wouldn't notice my condition. Unfortunately, I was not very fortunate, or perhaps a little voice spoke up behind me. "Is that for me, or are you simply delighted to see me?" I glanced around and noticed Lily's cool blue eyes. She appeared to be about to bust out laughing. Her smile seemed to brighten the entire room. I said, trying to think clearly. "It is absolutely for you, prove it." She giggled. I couldn't help but laugh too. "Listen," she said, softly sliding her arm over mine and squeezing against it. "Let into your room. I'll assist you clean it so it doesn't discolor." I exhaled. I was very certain she was married and I had a firm rule against becoming involved with married women. What occurred with Isabella just strengthened my resolve to follow that guideline. Lily's smiling face made me imagine what her kisses would taste like and how soft her skin would feel. Each thought made me feel a little more eager and I began to question my rule. "Lily," I muttered. "I thought you were married." "I can't believe. I'm telling you this, but I don't mess with married women, regardless of how badly I want to." Now I was questioning my own sanity. She grinned, brought my face down to hers and kissed me on the cheek. Her face screwed up slightly before revealing a cheeky smirk. "My marriage is currently strained. I discovered out that my hubby is cheating on me. I'm not sure if I'll leave him stay with him till I find someone else or try to mend the situation." "What I know," she replied with a sly smile, "is that the rules have changed." She looked into my eyes waiting for my decision. "So do you know a suitable technique to clean this area?" I asked with a friendly smile. Her face lit up with a huge smile, guaranteed, she laughed. "Let me get a couple items." She left for a few minutes and returned with a tiny bag. She placed her arm around mine again and stared at me with sparkling eyes. "Lead the way, hot stuff," she said when we arrived at the hotel room. I nearly tripped on the way to the elevator. Lily placed her suitcase on the desk and guided me to a chair. She stared into my eyes and instructed me to undress. I didn't hesitate. When I was down to my boxers, she took my jeans to the closet and placed them in a dry cleaning bag. She hung it outside the room and smiled back at me. "That should resolve the issue," I replied, smiling. "What if I need them?" Before the morning, Lily walked back over to me. "You will not." She stated this while bending over and pulling down my boxers. She stated this while staring at me, then smiled back. "That will do," she responded with a smile. She gently pushed me into the chair and pulled out her cell phone. She fiddled with it for a moment before it began playing music. She gave me a satisfied smile. "Now where were we?" "Oh yes, I was going to offer you a lap dance." She swiftly removed her blouse, bra and skirt and began dancing to the music, making sure I could see every inch of her. She soon leaned forward and brushed her lovely breasts against my chest. She leaned in closer, grasped my face in her tiny hands and kissed me deeply for a few moments. I was lost in the intensity of her lips. I could sense desire in her blue eyes as she controlled her breathing. Her breasts moved with every long breath, nearly touched my chest. I sat and watched, feeling foolish. My mouth was watering as I grabbed for her. Lily moved back, giggled and slapped my hand away. "Oh, you're not a stud," she said with a grin. "No hands." She smiled wolfishly at me before turning to the luggage. She brought it back to me. She took out a few items and placed them on the table as she ordered them. I couldn't stop staring at her, resisting the impulse to reach out. I giggled as she turned around. She had a chocolate cupcake between her breasts with a solitary candle inside. She had smeared icing on each nipple. "Happy birthday," she giggled. "Now make a wish." I leaned forward, blew out the C handle and bit into the cupcake without using my hands. Lily laughed and put the rest of the cupcake into the trash. I looked at her puzzled. She grinned and stated, "I have something sweeter for you to taste." I leaned forward and licked the frosting from her right breast. She sighed, gently raising her breast so I could finish. Then she scraped frosting from her other breast and smeared it down my shaft. I swiftly cleansed her left nipple. Lily dropped on her knees and began teasing at me with her mouth. She watched me squirm with each movement of her tongue. I felt a nice warm sensation as she drew me into her mouth. Her tongue moved around, increasing the pleasure. I looked down and noticed she was as thrilled as I was. She acted as if it were her favorite pleasure. I let out a deep cry when I felt her throat tighten around me with a loud pop. She let go and gave me a cheeky smile. She moved closer and let me to slide between her breasts. She let some saliva drip to help things go smoothly. She grasped her breasts and pressed me against them, sliding me up and down as she moved faster. I felt the pressure building inside and attempted to warn her. "Lily," I said roughly, "I am almost there." She grinned broadly, kissed the tip and pressed harder. After a few strokes I was done, spilling onto her chest and mine. I let out a loud breath and settled into my chair. Lily bent down and licked my chest, chuckling as she went me. She spoke quietly, gazing into my eyes tasty. Then she jumped up and dashed into the restroom. A few seconds later she returned with a warm washcloth to clean both of our chests. When she was finished, she softly took me back into her mouth, hoping to wake me up. I was about to tell her it would be a bit before I was ready when I felt a twitch. Then, to my surprise, I began to stand again. I hadn't recovered that quickly since I was a teenager. I grabbed her face and kissed her deeply, moving our tongues together. I tasted the remnants of my previous release. I carefully got up, keeping our kiss intact and wrapping my arms around her. I held her tight, breaking the kiss. I guided her to the bed and gently sat her down. I grinned as I met her eager eyes. It was time for the next part. I forced her onto her back and gradually lifted her legs. I stroked my fingers down her neck, between her breasts, over her tummy and to her hips. I gradually removed her underpants as it fell off. It demonstrated her readiness. I knew she was prepared, so I didn't tease with every kiss and touch. I overheard her faint murmurs. I stopped and she tightened in expectation. I started to satisfy her with my mouth and she gasped, letting out a deep sigh. I raised her legs for easier access and her moans became louder. She pressed my face more into her, obviously enjoying it. Oh yes, she did breathe, do it now. I kissed my way up her body, taking my time when I got to her lips. I kissed her gently and glanced at her hot face. What have you said? I whispered, still smiling. Her eyes shone with intensity. Take me. She snarled, her voice low. I knew she meant it. I eased myself into her, feeling her warmth. I slowly entered halfway. She tightened and gasped. I'm medium-sized, yet hefty. She was so prepared that I slid in with ease. The heat was incredible and I could feel her muscles drawing me in. I pushed till I was unable to go any deeper. She gave a quiet grunt. I hesitated, letting her acclimate. Then I started moving in and out slowly each time I pulled out. She clung to me, not wanting me to leave. I pulled out almost entirely and then thrust back in. She let out a shocked gasp and wrapped her legs around me tightly as I moved, her body constricted around me, adding to the sensation. Her cries grew louder as she neared her climax. When she finally arrived, she tightened and closed her eyes. I smiled and allowed her to enjoy the moment. She opened her eyes and smiled. She whispered into my ear. Now let's do this for real. She pushed me off and climbed to the top. She positioned herself and took me in. She moved slowly at first, then faster. I could feel the pressure building inside me. She didn't simply sit there. She made sure to incorporate extra movement into each stroke. The feeling was incredible and I could feel myself getting closer. I was not just a passive participant either. I reached up and gently touched Lily's chest, ensuring she felt cared for. Her skin became red as her body warmed. She moaned and pushed into me with all her strength. Her moans became louder, indicating that she was approaching her climax. "Go faster, harder," she demanded urgently. "Like I am yours." We paused briefly. Her eyes widened, but before I could think, I thrust myself up into her with all my might. I grabbed her hips, hoping to get even closer. Her eyes closed again and she moaned loudly to express her satisfaction. Oh yes, just like that. Oh yes, I could feel the heat of her fluid around me pushing me to climax. I let out a loud grunt, releasing everything inside of her. Lily collapsed on my chest, her face resting near my neck. Our bodies were covered in a light sweat which bonded us together. We remained there holding each other. I caught my breath as she savored the final moments of her climax. I could feel her body trembling with each wave as she relaxed. She sighed contentedly. "Lily," I whispered. "Sure." She responded softly, "Rest." I held her and rested. I gently stroked her back as she cuddled up against me. I smoothed her hair and moved my hand down to her lower back, gently cupping her. I drew her close and heard her sigh. We both soon fell asleep. A few minutes later she moved and opened her eyes. I found myself staring into her happy blue eyes. She smiled softly and spoke gently. "Did you like your birthday gift?" I laughed and rolled my eyes. "The best birthday present ever," except I stopped myself when I saw her expression change from surprise to worry. "Except for that," I continued. "I'm lying in a large wet spot." I thought to myself, we made a real mess. The whole bed appeared damp. "You're silly." She laughed and looked at me warmly. "That will do." She giggled and gave me a gentle kiss. Her kiss ended our night and she got off of me. I felt cold without her warmth. She sat on the edge of the bed for a bit before standing up. "Wow," she laughed. "We made a real mess." She grabbed her belongings and entered the restroom. A few minutes later she emerged. She didn't appear as fresh as she had before, but her smile was still as lovely. "Stay," I said softly. She gazed at me for a moment. "I cannot," she said with a sorrowful smile. She hesitated and grinned brighter, "At least not this time." As she went, she gave me one last look. "Thank you, Eric," she murmured pleasantly. "That was fun." Then she was gone, lying there. I stared at the ceiling, lost in contemplation. As I fell asleep, I wondered if Lily realized how amazing her gift had been. My phone buzzed at daybreak, waking me up. I noticed it was Dave phoning. I attempted to respond, but only managed to grunt. "Sven, did he call you awake?" "No," I murmured. "I'm still sleeping and you are just a bad dream." "What if I could make it a positive dream, a very pleasant dream?" He laughed. "Okay," I murmured, hoping to wake up. "I'll meet you downstairs for breakfast and you can tell me about it." "Well," he chuckled. "Actually, I can't. Right now I'm kind of tied up." "Did I mention you could tell him that I heard Ava's voice in the background?" Dave yelped at hearing a harsh sound. He giggled as he thanked his sister. "Ava, can I have another Dave?" I laughed. "It is too early for this. Dude. Go up here." "I suppose I am in love, and Sven, it is never too early for this here." I overheard Ava say, "Give me your phone, Sven." She asked pleasantly. "I want a taste of what my friend ate last night. So come up here and see if you and Dave can make me happy." I stuttered, half sleeping, "No HBLA les." I hurriedly hung up and turned the phone off. I rolled over and laughed. I had several reasons not to visit Dave's room. I had just gotten over my ex Isabella and I wasn't prepared for any drama, plus I did not want to see Dave in that predicament. I smiled to myself. I was still young, had a solid career and appeared respectable. I knew I'd meet the proper woman someday. Until then I could wait. It was a fresh day and I was finally ready to move forward with my life. Now where are my pants? Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, Please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.